All super excited. It's got sound.
Yeah.
Lekker. Alright. I had to charge this thing, so just give me a second. Go to Matthew 25. Verse 14. Alright, let's read it. For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. Brother, had 2 talents more, made 2 talents more. So also he had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with him. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Yeah, I have made 5 more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also who had the 2 talents came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents here. I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent away from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness, in that place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Wild, eh? All right. So then I just want to check another thing. Go to Isaiah 54:2. Why did they call him Isaiah? Because his one eyes was higher than the other. It says here in Isaiah, enlarge the place of your tent, and let the curtains of your habitations be stretched out. Do not hold back. Lengthen your cords and strengthen your stakes. For you will spread abroad to the right and to the left, and your offspring will possess the nations and will possess the nations and will people the desolate cities. All right, so I've specifically picked those two scriptures because this morning I spoke on my little podcast about the savior mentality of the world, and primarily the savior mentality in addiction and the savior mentality that we have in South Africa. Okay? In that, I'm going to speak to addiction because many of you sitting here, let me start. There was a guy who was here, okay? Many moons ago, all right? And this guy continues to relapse, intervention done on him, proper interventions in terms of sit down, everyone gets together, everyone talks to the guy, everyone convinces him there's a problem again. Guy submits himself to rehab, sits in rehab, everyone looks after him in rehab, finishes his program, leaves rehab, goes back to where he goes, works a little bit, back on the drugs, lies, hides it, you know the normal story, okay? And then everybody gets together, does an intervention, convinces him he's got a problem, back to rehab, and this has been going on over and over for multiple years. So, last night they phoned me again about this guy. And I said to them, they said, yeah, we got to get together and we got to do an intervention. And I said, we're not doing it. Why not? We've always done it. I said, that's why we're not doing it. I said, because he has developed a mindset that whenever he makes trouble, or whenever he relapses, or whenever he gets into cuck, saviors are going to come and save him from his troubles. And then put him in rehab, and then everyone who's left outside sorts out all his problems and all the trouble he's made and all the criminal stuff, and goes to his boss and kisses his boss's backside, and everyone is running around saving him from his problem. And so, as much as that is sometimes required in the life of a recovering or of an addict in active addiction to get him into recovery, when you keep doing it and doing it and doing it, this person then relapses and relapses in the mindset and expectation that he's going to be saved from his problem. And that then feeds into the trigger mechanism of relapse, where, it's all right if I go smoke, and if I spend everything, and if I lose everything, and if I make trouble, then X, Y, Z will come and save me because I am so special and fantastic that they must come and save me. Now, in many cases, we have the situation with a lot of people that come here that before the addiction, or there was an addiction, the person pulled themselves out of their addiction through various methodologies. Our methodology combined with other methodologies, combined with whatever they do, they get out of it, right? And then they go on to become successful, okay? And you can look at successful any way you want in your mind, okay? They become successful, right? And then because they've become successful, people that were formerly trying to assist them now become dependent upon them. And as an addict, you quickly recognize that if I lose now, everyone around me is going to lose. And so financially, particularly, and I'm speaking particularly about financially, these people can't afford for me to lose, because if I lose, they're homeless pretty much. Or they're businessless, or they're done. They've become reliant and dependent upon my success after addiction, and have started living in that manner. So if I relapse now, everyone will come and save me because they're dependent upon me. And so then I go and relapse. You know? Because I know that my business or my job or the money that I've saved over the last, let's say, call it 15 years or 10 years of sobriety, there's enough there for these people to sustain themselves while I go to rehab, but they have to have me recover in order that we can continue the forward motion. If I don't recover, everyone's dead in the water. My kids' education is dead in the water, whatever it is. All right? So we relapse, go to rehab, come out, we have a measure of success again, and we stay in that mentality. Now, there's other guys, yeah, who have never been through that process. Their process has been, we've never achieved any level of success, but we understand that because we have not achieved any level of success, that people are going to continue providing for us and saving us no matter how old we get. And so we become entitled, expecting the saving continually. Because it's always been there, it must always be there. And we've got men here, middle-aged men here, sitting here, living still in that mindset. That it is someone else's duty to come and rescue me from my addiction because I have a disease and I'm sick, and therefore I need to be hospitalized and treated. We call these types of guys professional patients. Professional patients. They move from psychiatric hospital to rehab, to hospital, back to psychiatric hospital, back to therapy, back to trauma treatment, back to rehab, back to psychiatric hospital, back to the psychologist, back to the doctor, back to rehab. They're continually in the circle of being rescued from all these sicknesses that they have been diagnosed with through their professional patient mentality. It's like a person that is addicted to, my stepfather was addicted, I promise you, to studying. That oak had more degrees than a thermometer. He was running out of degrees. When he finally retired, his academic status, he was never a professor, but his qualifications were that of a professor. He was a doctor of economics. And then I don't even know what he was studying anymore. I mean, after you receive a doctorate in your field, you know, what do you then study? Well, whatever he could get his hands on. Just do degrees to do degrees. You know what I mean? Clever at a different level. But. So, you have these people, right, that get addicted to these things. But some of you are addicted to being rescued. You fail on purpose in order to feel validated when you are rescued. And so you keep failing in order to be continually rescued and saved. I watch guys here, right? And I use this as an example. The tuck shop, one-way mindset, right? Who 100% intrinsically believe that because the rescuer rescued me, the rescuer is now responsible 100% for my luxury. And we use our position of fear. Because these people that rescued you, many of them are living in fear of you. And they're not scared of you in terms of your physical ability to possibly beat somebody up. They're afraid of returning to the lifestyle that you are forcing them to live in your addiction. They don't want it. They worry when you say, I'm coming home. They go into anxiety, some people. They phone us here. And then we sit you down and we try and convince you to stay longer. And in your mind, you think it's because we're trying to enrich ourselves. And in your mind, you think at your expense, when you are expending nothing. You're expending nothing. Other people are expending on your behalf. And the people that are expending and spending on you are so afraid of you coming back that they would rather lose the money than deal with the problem that you are going to create. And you know it. And so you manipulate that with things like, my one way isn't here. If you don't put one way in and if you don't do this, then I'm going to leave. Because you know, that's the most terrifying prospect for the people that have rescued you. Because it's a horror show. And you've become reliant upon that. And your fear is, your number one fear is that those people are going to stop paying for your life. That's your number one fear. Because let me tell you, we're very different to women in our addictions. It's far more difficult to rehabilitate women than it is to rehabilitate men. Because women have the ability to continue their addictions because they can use their bodies to continue in their addiction. And because they can use their bodies and their female charms to continue in their addictions, they don't very often, they do, a lot of them do what I'm about to say, but not at the depth and speed that men get into this problem. They don't have to engage in crime. If you lose your job, you lose your home, you have no way of getting money, you've got two options open to you. If you're not able to work because of your addiction, no one wants to employ you, because whenever they employ you, 15 minutes later, you steal something and you disappear. The word spreads. And eventually you'll move to another town, you'll work in one or two places, and eventually your addiction takes root to the point where you take drugs at such a level that you are unable to even get up and go to work. That leaves you with two options: begging or stealing. Now, I've met many beggars in my life, many, who use the moral high ground of, I beg so that I don't have to steal. Right? And the reason I beg is because, and the list is long, the blame game. Point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, point 5. I put that on a post on Facebook this morning. Someone put a post there about how people are complaining that it's so hard to live and our grandparents had it easy and all of that. You know, it's like, and one of, you know, a lot of the things, there's a lot that said there. I can even read it to you guys if you want. But, you know, a couple of things would say that, well, you know, We had no takeaways. Grandpa and Grandma had no takeaways. And Grandpa and Grandma, we used to have to eat what was in the fridge. Grandpa and Grandma didn't have this, didn't have that, so they didn't spend money on those things. And so, Grandpa and Grandma didn't have to go for a brunch with our friends that didn't order a double split cafe mochaccino latte with a twist at $100 a cup. This is why they always seem to have money, because the money that they had, they bought their groceries, they put it in the fridge, and then they would cook the food they have at home. They weren't constantly at Steers or at Uber, getting Uber Eats or whatever it was, spending money on those things. And so because they just bought what they needed and lived within their means, they always had money. But we live outside of our means. We live in debt, and we want fast food, and we want this, and we want to be there. And so we're spending money on all these things, and then we can't understand why we don't have money. That was pretty much the crux of the conversation. You with me? People went to work, and people lived within their means. People understood. If you want to live, you work, you buy a house, We didn't have, if you work out, I challenge you, sit here with a pen and paper now, and work out how much money you've spent just on your drug of choice. And work it on bare minimum. So if you, let's say, a heroin guy, right? Take it on the absolute bare minimum that you need to get through a day in terms of bags, okay? Get the cost of that, and then times that by the amount of times you use that every day over the years that you've been using it, and come to the total. And figure out and check what that amount is. I've done the exercise here. Plenty. You want me to do it again for you? Yeah. So, when we were stealing at the max, our friends told us we were spending each no less than $5,000 a day. Because we would steal and make a lot of money, and then 2-3 days into the binge, we'd run out of that money, and then we'd start lending money from our fence. And then for a couple of days. Then we would go steal, take the stolen goods back to the fence, and then the fence would take off what we owe him and then pay us again. And it would still be a lot of money. Then we'd go binge again for 3-4 days. And after the binge, usually what would happen is we'd take a day or 2 days rest. Almost like a weekend. But our weeks were not 7 days. Our weeks were like 10, 12 days at a time. So steal, drug, rest for a couple of days. Back to stealing and drugging. And if you're stealing, doesn't mean you don't drug that day. It just means that you don't drug in the morning so that you can start drugging in the afternoon. And we were professional thieves. That's what we did. We had cars, we had systems, we had the tools, we had everything. That was our job. Our job was stealing. Right? And we made a lot of money like that. And we spent it all, every single cent on drugs. So my friend said to me, he would estimate that we each, and we were a crew of 3 guys, right? Sometimes 4. But we would each spend at least $5,000 a day on crack. So I said, that sounds excessive. I said, because when I was clean, I went and spoke to him. And I said to him, how many days a week did we do that? Each and every day. So that's 365 days a year, bro. $5,000 a day. Now, if you work it out on that figure, you got a problem. Because that's a ridiculous amount of money, right? So I said, no, that sounds excessive. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to half that amount. Right? So $2,500 a day. And I'm going to cut out 3 days a week. So it's $2,500 times 4. Right? 4 days. So that's $10,000 a week. There's 52 weeks in a year. So it's 10 times 52. That's 520,000 Rand a year times 16 years. Huh? 8.32 million Rand. Just crack. Lowball. Lowball with 100%. So take, for argument's sake, another 3.5 bar off that and say that went to cigarettes, alcohol, and the jaw. Not crack. Other drug-related activities. All right? So 5 million rand in 16 years I gave to Nigerians, but 5 bar. Think about it. And then you wonder, why are you struggling, right? So the beggar will say, I don't steal on a moral high ground. Okay? Stealing is bad. The thief will say, I steal because I refuse to be a beggar. And take that moral high ground. But neither is a moral high ground. The moral high ground is stop doing drugs, go to work and earn a living. You with me? And where I started this was that women are harder to rehabilitate than men. And the reason is, as happened to me, as happened to all my friends, all right, if you steal enough, the police are going to find out about you. And they're going to start investigating you. And they're going to start figuring out what that word, modus operandi is. And then they're going to check in what areas of Johannesburg that modus operandi is being employed at their housebreaking scenes. And then they're going to say, right, this crew of oaks works like that. The information they've received, that house was hit like that, that house was hit like that, that house was hit like that. And then they're going to close the circle and they're going to see what areas you generally work in. Then they're going to set up operations and then they're going to catch you. I wasn't caught like that. I was caught because I was so desperate for money. My friend was getting sick from heroin withdrawal that we hit the first house that we could find when we went into this area in Benoni. Lo and behold, we hit the house not realizing that the house is 1 block away from the police station. And we get caught by a woman constable on her way to work. Sees us breaking into the house. Goes to the cops, shouts, come, guys. They're hitting this house. We come out of the house, it's just police everywhere. Arrested, 6.5 months awaiting trial, Monabi prison. Off to Nowport, 2 years. Thanks for coming. Under bail conditions, right? And that's what happens to guys. That's why guys generally recover quicker than women. Because guys get involved in criminality, get arrested, go to prison, decide they don't like prison, and decide that maybe drugs is not worth going to prison for. You with me? And therefore stop doing drugs, okay? And doing things right because of the fear of going back to prison. Some guys enjoy prison. But I'm not speaking to those guys because some guys, prison becomes the savior. I met guys in the cells there that go and commit crimes on purpose in winter so that they can be in prison. Little petty crimes. And their bail is like $500. They've got the $500, but they don't pay it because it's comfortable there. 3 chars, they use a bit of their money to get extra food, whatever. Their families come and drop off groceries there every visit. Those oaks are there. Ask oaks that have been to prison. They're there. They're real. And those oaks become comfortable in that place. And then when the sun comes out, you'll see, when it becomes summer, all the hobos move back from Durban back to Joburg. In winter, they go to Durban because it's warm. And in Joburg, when it's warm here, they come back because there's more money here. They can beg more. Also in winter, people from Joburg like to go to Durban. So there's more money to beg in Durban. You often check them. Drive down the N3. You check guys out trapping with their little bag or their suitcase there down the flipping N3 highway. And then tonight they sleep in Villiers. And then tomorrow they sleep in Harry Smith. And then the next night they sleep in Moy River, and then the next night they're in Maritzburg, and then in Maritzburg they Westville, and then Westville, Durban. And then they travel down to Port Shepstone and Margate. And then they make a U-turn, and, halfway through winter, and then they start making their way back. Now they operate. You check. And so, guys generally recover at an earlier age, generally, than women do. Women resort to prostitution. And women make a lot of money through prostitution. And with that money, they're able to get themselves an apartment and do drugs, or they stay at the flippin' brothel. They pay the brothel for a room and whatever the case may be. But they can continue. And they know that they can walk out of rehab any time and go straight back to that and continue in their lifestyle. So to get them into rehab, you know that women generally are more addicted. This is what we found as we've worked with women a lot, right? We found in addiction, women are more addicted to the prostitution than they are to the drugs. Because the lifestyle of prostitution is a lifestyle of pretty much on the jaw all the time. And they're willing to give up that sanctity in order to continue in that lifestyle. So a lot of women, when they leave rehab, they relapse first into the prostitution, and then with the prostitution comes the drugs. It's crazy, eh? You wouldn't think that, eh? But it's true. You can go read studies on it, even. Now, where are you at today? Who's coming to save you? This is something you need to start understanding. That's why I read you those two scriptures, right? Is that the time already? How long have I been going? 15 minutes. 35. What time did we start? 9. So it's only 9:45 now. Right? So my watch just stopped. Busted. So tell me, what's it on? 7 minutes past 10. All right. I'm pretty much nearly done. Been out about another hour. Okay? It's the smokers. So, if I can do it, you can do it. Right? So it's like this. Right? The biblical principle. Let me start here where I started in my podcast this morning. Within your humanity, the way you are created and designed, or the way that you have evolved, you have been built with a mindset of growth, expansion, and being inquisitive. The reason we're not walking around or riding on horses or in carts or still flipping, rowing little dugout boats across the rivers, in some places they are, but generally speaking, as a species around the world, we have grown to where we are in the modern world, where we have these lack of cars and Wi-Fi and all these things that we have, because humankind is intrinsically inquisitive and has this built-in desire to grow and expand and create. And we developed a concept called we became self-aware, right? That's what a lot of people will argue in Genesis, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was when man became self-aware and then developed this concept of future. What is future? If I say to you, what does your future look like? What immediately comes to your mind? What would you like your future to look like? And where does this concept of what my future, what my dreams, what my aspirations are, where does it come from? Why do we have this? Dogs do not sit and plan. All right, babe, what we're going to do is we're going to have 1 litter of puppies. because we can only afford to send one litter to dog training school. And we want this litter of puppies to be the best sheepdogs that have ever been. And so what we're going to do is we're going to send them to the best sheepdog school so that, and we'll teach them how to be sheepdogs before they even go to school. And do dogs do that? But we do that. Now, why do we have a concept of future and dreams for the future when we know that the future is actually only limited to a very short period of time for us personally? What is this need? And I'm telling you, it's built into us by God. Because the whole process of life is a process of starting as a little flippant baby and then proceeding to a place where when you have a baby, that you leave something for that baby. And you can take that as a overarching concept of our societies and cultures. Even if you don't have babies, you want to make sure that the guys that do have babies, that their kids, like in our country now, I want the kids of this country, all of them, to at a bare minimum have food to eat, have a proper toilet to go to the toilet in, to be able to go and open a tap and running water to come out of that tap. Clean water. To have the opportunity of expanding their mind so that they, here it comes, can live the best possible version of themselves. Because we have provided it for them. That is what future is about. To ensure that the generation that comes after us has it better than we had it. And to a great degree, many human beings have succeeded in that mindset. Many. And then we come along, the prodigal sons, who don't care about anything else but ourselves. Not understanding that yourself, you who you are, is only going to be here for a very short period of time. And in that period of time, you have to establish your own life. The responsibility is not upon some savior to come and provide you with a life. I said this morning in that thing, for 2,000 years now, 2,000 years, that's long before your great-grandpa lived, who you never met. Probably. Some of you may have. From the time Christ ascended into heaven, people have been expecting him to return next week. Waiting for the Savior to come. Doing nothing. Christians, churches, just waiting for Jesus. 2,000 years later, we're still waiting for Jesus. Jesus will come when Jesus comes. That's why Jesus in the Bible provides you with parables, like parables of the unjust steward, parables of the talents, parables of the wedding ceremonies, these types of things where Paul speaks about you must provide, but not only provide, you must use your talent, whatever it is, and expand it. That is what is expected of you in order to achieve what goal? Ultimately, the growth of the kingdom of heaven. The expansion of God's love to humanity. So God will allow you to become an Elon Musk so that you can grow the message. But if you're going to sit on your backside, waiting for Julius Malema or Cyril Ramaphosa or Corneille Mulder or Helen Zille or whoever you think is now going to come into power next year and change the system and just give you free millimil, you're dreaming, my butt. You're dreaming. If you think that you read the stuff that I read every day, because I'm on all these Christian sites and pages and that, because that's obviously my endeavor. What these people believe. People are preparing bunkers and food and all of that because it's Armageddon and the tribulation and Jesus is coming on the 12th of September, and remember all the stories. What? You know? In this hope that some savior is going to come and save us from the responsibility of building and growing our own lives. It might happen, but the chances are very good that it's not going to happen in terms of Christ returning today. It could happen. It says, I'll come as a thief in the night. You don't know when it's going to happen. This is the key. But what are you going to do until it happens? People are crying in this country. We don't have jobs. Right? So tell me, sir, who must provide you with jobs? Who is the person that must create the thing that must employ you? I need an answer. Who is that person? So if you can't find a job because no one else is creating the shop, the industry, the IT company, whatever it is, the construction company, to provide you with the work, right? How much work do you think one municipality or one government can provide for its population? The government, any country in the world, China, the only, in inverted commas, successful socialist country, right? It's not actually socialist, communist. Where children from the age of 6 are making our Nike tackies under forced labor conditions. That's why it's not a successful country. Financially, it looks great. Militarily, it looks great. But as a human being, to live there, very difficult for some people. Those that are connected, like in South Africa, very lekker. Those who are not connected, cuck off. Right? Like South Africa. But how many people do you think, in reality, any government could employ with no tax coming in and no trade? China has at least got trade. They've got Timu.
Also, that's because they've got a socialism structure of governing, but they've got a free market economy.
Well, they've got a free market economy in terms of the way they deal with the Western world. This is why there's a big problem now with Donald Trump. Because without America, so if you look what's happening there now, Apple is moving back to America, Nike is moving back to America, everyone is moving back to America because America, Donald Trump has made it very expensive for China to sell their goods to Americans. So it now makes more sense for the American companies to go back to America and employ Americans to make the products that they're going to sell back to Americans.
They used to call it Chimerica, where China produces, America consumes.
And that's exactly what's happening in South Africa. So what South Africa is doing is we're selling our raw materials for next to nothing and buying finished goods that are made with our raw materials from China at inflated cost. So our money is only really going one way. So if you take these cars that are coming here, these new, and some of them are lacquer, these Chinese cars, right? Those cars are built with the raw materials that come from here. And we're buying them because they're so cheap. But I know guys in the game. Those cars are designed 3 years. Gooi weg. When your bank loan on that car is 6 years. It's made to break. But that's not the point. The point is, if we're continually importing goods and we're not building things, right? Who's going to employ us? If you that are sitting here and all our fellow South Africans, all right, are not in the mindset of building and growing ourselves. We're expecting Dave, I see it here all the time with the oaks on this program, my staff. Shane is another prime example. He's been hacking me. We must start a business. No, this is not what they mean. What they mean is, Pastor Dave, you must start a business, and we, not you, the other we's in the equation. After you've started the business, we must make the money off it. That's what they actually mean. Still in the savior mentality. You must provide us with a way for us to provide ourselves with a way. When you get out of that mindset, you know, just a basic story on this issue. When Walking with Winners started, it wasn't Walking with Winners. It was just Dave. And somebody came to me, the first guy that came to me for help, his name was a guy, Philip Buerta. And I had small pockets of success with him. Never achieved long-term success with that oak. Because he was also in that trap, also a heroin guy. Who eventually died in COVID from heroin. Right? Well, heroin induced complications when he got COVID. Right? He was my first guy, Philip. And his mom came to me and said, my son is going to die. I managed to keep him alive at a bare minimum for another 10 years, intermittently. You know, also rescuing him all the time, right? But the point is, his mother came to me. I was unemployed. I was in recovery myself. I was going to support groups. My wife was providing for me. Okay? And this like knocked on my gate, his mom, and said, please help my son. I said, well, I don't know how I'm going to do that because I have no money myself. She says, I will give you vegetables. We've got a plot. Whatever we grow, we will bring you. Whatever pigs and whatever we slaughter there, we will bring you meat to support him and your son. And I said, bring it on. That's how it started. My first income was vegetables, literally. Then another oak came. Then another oak came. We were taking whatever people could afford. And it grew into this. That's why I maintain that God did it, actually. If there's anyone that can have a savior mentality, it's me, because God absolutely saved me, bro. But if I was not willing to sit with that oak through 4 days of withdrawal and pick up his cotch and mop up his shit and throw it in the toilet and hold his hand and put cold towels on him, and if I wasn't prepared to stay awake 36 hours at a time to help that oak get through that, where would we be? We wouldn't be where we are now. And this is what I'm saying to you. If you want to get somewhere, you need to start formulating. If you want to get to a future, you need to formulate a plan of action to get there. And it mustn't be unrealistic, but it must be a realistic, doable, achievable, step-by-step plan to get to the result. Whatever that result may be in your head. You've done it. There's an oak sitting here now. I can check. He's already thinking like this. I saw you. My plan is to get back to drugs. And I'm going to work a step-by-step achievable mission here to get out as soon as possible to get to my drugs. I saw you as I looked around this crowd. I checked your flipping little head spinning, but. And if that's what you want to do that then, bro.